I want you to close your eyes and think about your stereotype of a piano teacher's living room. Are there books all over the piano, all over the floor, on the windowsills, maybe on a bureau on the side, maybe on a dining room table? Okay, now open your eyes. Is that what you're seeing around you right now? If so, you need this video. It's time to put some order in place, and I'm here to help. If we haven't met before, my name is Nicola Canton. I run a piano studio here in Dublin in Ireland, and I also run two sites, vibrantmusicteaching.com and vividpractice.com, which help music teachers to level up their teaching and their businesses. Now today, I have a different qualification, which is that I am a total organization nerd. I've always been quite messy as a younger person, but still, I loved organizational systems, and especially color coding and fitting things into the right pockets and folders and having color-coded pens for my notebooks in school. Yeah, I loved all that. You might not have been able to read my handwriting because it's appalling, but the color-coded system was on point. So let me help you find the best system for you. Step one, I want you to decide your categories. And this is the most important part. Actually, the last point is the most important part. This is the second most important. You need to have categories that make sense to you. So I want you to start by thinking, how do I think of books? If you're trying to remember a book your student used several years ago that you haven't used since, right? What do you think of first? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it the color of the book and the visual of it? Is it the composer? Is it the publisher? Is it the name of the book? That's going to decide how you should organize your books. And in fact, I use several of those options in my own teaching studio because different things I think about differently. If I know a composer well, I associate their books with them, like it goes with their personality. So I will file it according to their name. If it's a composer I use a lot of and they can fill a whole magazine folder by themselves. But if it's not a composer I know super well or I use a lot of their books, if I just use them a little bit, well then they'll probably go by genre for me. That's how I think of it. So how do you think of books? That's the step you need to decide first. Step two then is to put your categories in place. Now, you may need to take out all your books and sort of divide them up by these categories, even if that's yellow, blue, or composer's name alphabetically. Divide them up in the way that you've decided makes sense to you, and then see how much you have of each one, because you're not going to need to allocate your shelf space or your drawer space, whatever way you store them, according to that. Personally, I love to use magazine folders. So those are the boxy type containers that you put books into and they're standing up tall, right, with the spines facing out. That's my favorite way because things stay organized. If I just organize things on a shelf, then gradually they get less and less organized. Even if I've got labels down the bottom like you have in a library, eventually they get out of order. So magazine folders help everything stay organized the whole time. So that's my favorite. And I just slot the ones I get from IKEA. You have a little window in the front and I just slot the category in there so I can easily change it out later. Or expand, add more magazine folders that have the same label if I'm going across several levels of the same method series or whatever it may be. Step 3 might not be your favorite part, but I think you can make it your favorite part. Excuse me if that sounds a bit smug, but I really enjoy this step of putting everything away. I think you can make a day of it. If you can find a chunk of time, a day when you're not teaching or when you have the whole morning clear or something like that, and just put everything away. Do something to make it fun for you. So put on an audiobook or a podcast you love. Maybe my podcast, Vibrant Music Teaching. You could double down on getting some professional development in. Or just listen to a story. Or maybe you listen to music. Remember music? We're music teachers, but we don't always get the time to really listen to music, right? So much of our music in our environment these days is background music. This is kind of an environment where it's background music, but you're going to have the opportunity to let most of your mind listen to it. So I think it's great for that. Maybe you put on some dancey music and you have a bit of a dance party while you're doing your organization, whatever makes it the most fun to you. Now, step 4 is the final step, and I said this was the most important, and I mean it. So we often think of setting the morning aside or putting everything away and making the categories as the most important part, but it's not. It's maintenance. That's what matters. So that's why the categories have to be the things you think of, because then it's easier to maintain them. But you do need some kind of a habit system to keep it maintained over time. So you're going to have to make a rule with yourself. And I know you might not like this, but you're going to have to do it. Either before you close your teaching room for the evening or before you start your teaching for the day. Pick one of those. Everything has to be put away. Right? So personally, for me, this is before I start teaching the next day. Because when I am done in the evening, I am done. And I get the argument for putting everything away and feeling like it's wrapped up. And if it stresses you out knowing the mess is there in your studio, or if you're teaching from your living room and it really is getting in the way, then fair enough. Do it before you wrap up for the evening and go have dinner, whatever. For me, I'm not interested in doing that. I tidy things as I go as much as I can during the day, like when a student is late, I'm normally putting a few books away and that kind of thing. But failing that, if there are things I haven't put away, at the start of my next teaching day, they have to be put away. Which I think actually helps you prepare for the teaching day, because it forces you to arrive at your teaching space at least, say, 10 minutes early. Some of us are doing work in our teaching space directly before we teach anyway, so we're doing admin or whatever, but some of us put that elsewhere in our day, and it can be tempting to fill, household tasks and whatever until the last second before you have to teach, and then suddenly your student is arriving. And that's a stressful way to begin your teaching day. So I think starting with 10 minutes of, okay, I'll just tidy a few books away. It's only going to be a few. It's only a day's worth, right? And then getting everything squared away and then your student arrives, I think it puts you in a better headspace. So that's my way of organizing. Let me know if it matches yours or if you totally disagree with me. Let me know in the comments. And if you get your organization system in place and you love it for the first time ever, please send me a photo. I'd love to see it. The best place to find me is on Instagram. We're at Colourful Keys, same name as this channel. And yeah, I would love to see it. And if you love thinking about your studio business, you should watch this video next.